Hi, my name is Brian Shumaker, owner of Susquehanna River Guides, a fly fishing service for smallmouth bass, and also one of the guides for precision fly fishing. Tonight, we're going to talk to you about getting set up for fly fishing for smallmouth bass. The most important piece of the equation is going to be the rod. On most rivers, lakes, or ponds, you can fish a 6, 7, or 8. 6 weight would be great for smaller waters. The 7 is the middle culprit there, and that's a good all-around rod. 8 weight if you're going to fish a little bit bigger water or if you got a lot of wind. So it's a 6, 7, 8, with the 7 weight being the ideal setup for most of your smallmouth bass fly fishing. When it comes to most of your warm water fly fishing, you don't need to get a reel to stop a Mack truck. Basically, all this reel is going to do is it's going to hold your fly line. But you do need something that you can put at least 175 to 225 yards of backing on. And you'd like to get large arbor, and I prefer to have something lightweight. Some of the different reels are a little bit more heavier. I just prefer something a little bit lighter. Again, you don't need to spend a lot of money on a reel because basically it's just going to hold your fly line. When you go to hook a smallmouth bass, you don't want to try to put that bass on the reel because what's going to happen is when you try to put that fish on the reel, you're going to create slack. And when you give that fish a little bit of slack, 9 times out of 10, he's going to throw that fly. So basically, you're going to hand strip the fish in and not try to put them on the reel. So that's why you don't need a super duper drag or anything like that. I've caught fish up to 5 pounds, smallmouth bass on the Susquehanna, and I have yet to have one take me into my backing. So again, your choice, but it's just going to hold the fly line. Your main line here is going to be a weight forward floating line, okay? That's where you're going to be able to do probably 85 to 90% of your fishing with, is a floating line, a weight forward floating line. You can look into the bass bug tapers if you really want to. It's not something that I would recommend. Just a good weight forward floating line for the weight of rod that you purchased for smallmouth bass, be it a 6, 7, or 8. The second other line that you want to look at will be an intermediate line or an intermediate tip, and you can reel that up on your spare spool. So when you need to get your fly down a little bit deeper, you can go to this intermediate line. It's a slow sinking line. It sinks about 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches per second. But what that'll do is it'll be able to take your fly down below the surface a little bit deeper than what your weight forward floating line will. All right, so now that we have the rod, the reel, and our fly lines, our next step is going to be a leader, okay? You can buy pre-packaged leaders. You can build your own leaders. There are a host of formulas out there to build your own leaders. I like to get the pre-packaged leaders. They're a little bit quicker. You don't have to worry about tying knots or anything like that. So for your leader setup, I would go with a 7.5 foot tapered down to a 2X leader, okay? And then what you'll do on the end of that is you can either do a blood knot with your tippet to add about 2 foot of tippet or 2.5 foot, which will give you a 9-foot leader. And then your tippet material, something to also realize if you're transitioning from trout to smallmouth bass, smallmouth bass are per se not leader shy. So my tippet is I don't go less than 2X, which is 10-pound test, or I'll go up as high as 12-pound test for my tippet strength. There are times in certain situations where if you have real low clear water, bass can get spooky and you'd have to make a longer leader. But for the most part, 7.5 foot tapered down to 2X, and then just add a 2-foot section of either 2X or 1X, which would be 10-pound or 12-pound tippet, and that will get you set up, ready to go fish. So now we got a rod, a reel, lines, and leader. So now we got to put this all together, and we got to go to flies, what the bass are going to take, what they're going to eat. So we're going to start at the top with popping bugs. There's different styles. These are flat, rounded. You have your square heads, your blockhead poppers. Over here we got cup face poppers. And then here's another little type of bug. Same type of deal as the first one I showed. Real quick before I get too much into the flies, don't get carried away with color, okay? There are 3 triggers for a smallmouth bass. It's going to be the size of the prey, the shape, and movement. Just keep those 3 things in mind. And color's not really that important. It's the size of the prey, the shape, and the movement. So like I just showed you some topwater offerings that we have available. The next would be the middle column. So you'll have streamers like shimmering minnow, come in different colors. It's a bait fish profile. Again, it's profile. This is another one that'll just come underneath the surface, tied with a wool head. It'll dart when you pull it and come back up and move all around, just to imitate a wounded bait fish. And then we go to the bottom of the water column. This is just an articulated streamer. It's got some lead eyes in it. Of course, you've got to have some type of crayfish pattern. Always have to have crayfish for smallmouth bass. You also have to have some type of a hellgrammite pattern. You need both of those. And you cannot smallmouth bass fish without a clouser minnow, bottom line. That fly was invented for smallmouth bass. That fly will catch smallmouth bass all over the country, all over the world. You got to have a clouser minnow. The other key to smallmouth bass on the fly, and it doesn't matter if you're fishing topwater, popping bugs, poppers, unweighted streamers, crayfish, hellgrammites, clouser minnows. The key is make your fly come alive, okay? When you make a cast, you have to, give 4 hard strips and a pause. The pause is the key because it's going to act like it's injured, okay? You don't want to make your cast and just short strips straight, because all that fly is doing is just coming through the water like this, like a piece of wood, okay? Make your flies come alive. All right, so we covered rods, reels, fly line options, leader options, flies, and all this is available at Precision Fly Fishing. Stay tuned for more videos, and thank you very much for watching.